This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy!
Blech! And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a hefty, ultra-strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of History You Didn't Know But Should. I'm Ray.
And I'm Chris. And you know, Ray, today we are continuing our study of interesting museums, monuments, structures that really fascinate us in the world of history. And I think it would be good, Ray, we should have a little contest where our listeners try to guess who picks each selected episode, because I think this would be a no-brainer that this is the brainchild of Ray Shepard. This is his episode because it has everything that Ray likes except George Washington. And somehow along the way, we'll probably find a way to bring him in. But Ray, this one deals with a person building a house with no plan, with no idea except just wanting to be different. And so that is one of the reasons why it's your brainchild, because I think you live in life wanting to be different. And so, Ray, we meet a very dear, probably good friend of yours, right? Because she was different also. So this is the brainchild of Sarah Winchester. And so, Ray, let's just get into this fun world of an episode.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you were talking about building with no plans, I was like, well, that's sort of the story of my life. I just sort of wing it. Someone asked me not too long ago, what were my plans? And it's like, I don't have any plans. I'm just going day by day, which is all sorts of fun. Yeah, so today we're going to be looking at Sarah Winchester and the Winchester Mystery House, of course, in San Jose, California. And this is, in fact, Chris, you nailed it. This is one of my more interesting topics. This is the kind of stuff I really love. So we're sort of doing Halloween in August, maybe a little bit. But Sarah Winchester was born Sarah Pardee. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And of course, she was born in 1839, 1840. It's not clear exactly what year she was born. She was born there in New Haven, Connecticut. Of course, the Winchester house is in California. We will come to how she ends up in California after being born and raised there in Connecticut. Her father actually was a carpenter, worked as a carpenter, and was something, Chris, I think you could say for his time, a very progressive man. He held abolitionist meetings in his home. Now, remember, when we're talking about here, we're not talking about the 1850s, early 1860. We're talking about 1839. So this is someone who was ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
And not only was he ahead of his time, but one of the things that he really pushed on his daughter was this idea of being educated and really working hard for that which you have. Yes, she grew up in a world of privilege. There's no mistaking. But with that privilege came the opportunity to gain a lot of knowledge. She attended the best schools, but she also spoke like 4 languages. So you have this well-rounded individual, which is why I love history, because we are about to talk about this lady who looks like on the outside, she's got it all together. I mean, she's got everything. Life of privilege. She's got the best education. She speaks these languages. She marries well. She's going to give birth to a daughter. But on the inside, she is literally a train wreck. I mean, there is just so much that's going on. And it just also, I think, speaks to how events in one's life can really cause a lot of serious health implications, referring to emotional, mental, as well as physical. And I think we see this because we'll talk about her getting married, to a very privileged individual of himself. But, she's going to experience a lot of tragedy during that relationship. And I think it sets the stage for the craziness of what she felt called to do, when things kind of went downhill with her husband and daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. And, she really could have had, I think, almost most any gentleman she wanted to there in New Haven. She was known as the Belle of New Haven. She was a very pretty young lady. And like you said, good background, privileged background, well-educated young lady. And she meets a guy called William Winchester. Probably, and I said she met him. That's probably not true. She probably known him since they were small children. They had grown up together, and they're in New Haven, Connecticut. But in 1862, they get married. And now where the Winchester, this is where the Winchester name comes in, because she goes from being Sarah Party to Sarah Winchester after marrying William Winchester. And it's his father, her father-in-law, Oliver Winchester, who starts the Winchester Repeating Arms Company in 1866. And of course, once her husband dies, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, that is where you get the Winchester house and the Winchester fortune all coming to her. It's coming to her not through her father, but her father-in-law. And, the family business, the Winchester rifle business, became very lucrative. It became very successful. You had people like Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, and President Theodore Roosevelt all using rifles made by the Winchesters.
And it's actually going to lead to her receiving a very large inheritance when her husband dies. I believe I read somewhere where she received $20 million, which, according to recent numbers, is like over $500 million. So she got $500 million. In addition, she received 50% of the Winchester Arms Company. And one of the documents that I was reading in preparation for this said that equaled to her receiving $1,000 a day, or in today's figures, it's like $26,000 a day. And so I started thinking about that as it relates to athletes. And I'm always, I think, flabbergasted and upset when I hear that a pitcher who pitches one inning of one game, makes like $26,000. And then we have individuals in today's society who work all year and don't even make $26,000. The ineffectiveness of having wage distribution that is equal. And I see this, because she inherits this money, but Ray, she inherits this money, and in a way, maybe you can clarify this or tell me I'm wrong on this, but maybe she starts thinking that the money that she's received is maybe like blood money. Is that a good way to put it?
I think so. And that's one of the things I've sort of thought. We're going to get into what caused her to begin this building process, moving to California and building this house. But one thing I have thought is maybe her association through her husband's father with the Winchester rifle and the Winchester Rifle Company. Maybe she felt some sort of personal guilt over, being associated with a company that makes a product that can, under certain circumstances, obviously be used to harm or kill other people. And that's directly related to, what happens after her husband dies.
Yeah, because, so she's, the money is there, but her, she's in her late 20s. And, when she's in her late 20s, her daughter that she had given birth to, the love of her life, in addition to her husband, dies. And it's just about 10 years later in which her husband dies. And so you have this individual who doesn't have work as a passion, really, right? Because she was born in this privileged lifestyle. She's lost her husband. She's lost her daughter. she is now in possession of this massive fortune, and she doesn't know what to do. And so, Ray, usually, if we're struggling, we'll go talk to a friend, or we'll talk to a family member. We'll talk to somebody that we trust, somebody that we can just kind of unload on and say, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe it's a preacher, but we just share. I don't know what to do. I'm in a bad spot. I've lost my husband, my daughter. I've got all this money. I am so unhappy. I got this money from the making of guns and the selling of guns, which harms other people. I need somebody to talk to. But Ray, she doesn't go talk to a preacher. She doesn't go talk to her friends. Rather, she goes and talks to someone my mama said I better never talk to in my life. And that was a medium or a psychic.
Yeah, and she goes to this medium who I think she was hoping to get, like you said, some guidance as to what to do in her life. And instead of that, what she gets is basically a warning that, and I think it was from her husband, allegedly speaking from the other side, she gets this warning that, there are spirits that are very angry with you, and you need to move out to California, and you need to build this house. And when we say you need to build this house always needs to be under construction. It needs to be in this state of perpetual construction, so that you can stay safe from these vengeful spirits who have been, I guess, as people, they were killed by the Winchester rifle or by a Winchester rifle. And so she, in 1884, she moves out to San Jose, California. She buys this small farmhouse, nothing like what the house would eventually become. She begins construction, and Chris, she is doing that. She makes sure there's construction going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at this house, because she is, for whatever reason, whether, she really believed what the psychic told her, or whether this is, a woman who's suffered a major tragedy in her life, 2 major tragedies in her life, and she's just wanting to keep people around her. She's wanting to keep things busy, and therefore she brings them in and maybe comes up with a story or whatever the case may be. But they are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at this house to take this small farmhouse there in San Jose, California, and turn it into something worthy of a person who has the amount of wealth that she does.
And there's nothing wrong with taking a small farmhouse and making it into a 7-story mansion if you're able to. That's fine. I think the problem is that there's no plan and there's no architect. You have Sarah Winchester, who you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't recognize what you should and should not do when building a house, there's going to be a problem. I know you and I have walked into classrooms before, and especially nowadays with the use of technology in our classrooms, and we walk into a classroom and there's one outlet in the entire room. And you ask, and I ask, what were they thinking? Why could they, not put an outlet on every wall? Why is it only on this one wall? And that's what Sarah Winchester is doing. There's no plan. There's no architect. She doesn't think, if I have an outlet on all 4 walls, I can put a table on any wall. I can do all kinds of things. Well, it goes far beyond that, because not only does she, not put outlets where outlets need to go, but she's got rooms that she's adding on in which a window overlooks another room. So it's not like your window looking outside. It's the window of one bedroom, or, a window that's on a wall of one bedroom that looks into the other bedroom. And then she builds these staircases, and, you're the music, I'm sure, Stairway to Heaven, which seems like that's what she's trying to do. But she builds all of these multiple staircases, and they've got different size steps. They go in different directions, but Ray, they lead to nowhere. They lead to like walls, and you would then, go down a hallway and you turn and you would find another hall. So I think it's really interesting with all that she's trying to do. And the final thing that I'll say before you add some more details to this is that she insisted. She's not an architect. She hasn't planned anything, but for some reason, the medium said that her husband said, you need to build it exclusively out of red wood. My thinking, and I don't know this, I might be wrong, is that maybe the Winchester guns were made out of red wood, and maybe that's some way of trying to, to appease the spirits that are out there. So she builds the entire home out of redwood, but she hates redwood. She doesn't like it. And so she says, well, we're going to paint it. Ray, they use 20,000 gallons of paint to cover that wood. So we start to see, as she's building the house, this oddly constructed, no plan mansion is just about to get even creepier.
Yeah, and it's not just the staircases that end at walls, the doors you open and there's a wall, the rooms looking out on other rooms, different size steps. It's not just all of that. She also has secret passageways built into the room, built into the house. So the idea she had was she could sneak around this house, and the story goes that the purpose of all this was to confuse the evil ghosts, so that if they were trying to follow her, they would go through a door and boom, there would be a wall. And I guess theoretically she thought they couldn't go through the wall. That this would confuse the ghosts. They wouldn't know where she was. She slept in a different bedroom practically every night. She walked through these secret tunnels. She had, or not secret tunnels, secret passageways. She had workers at the house 24/7, construction going on 24/7. And I think her idea, at least the way the story goes, is that, I'm going to keep things busy, keep things going. The ghosts will not be able to catch up with me. The demons that are after me will not be able to catch up with me, and I will be saved. So you got the picture of this woman, this poor widow woman, and she's not poor financially, but I think she is poor in some ways. She's sneaking around this house, scared, maybe even of her own shadow. And, maybe she's lonely, maybe whatever the case may be. And, here she is going from room to room, not sleeping in the same room, trying to create all these diversions within the house. It's really a sad picture. She becomes something of a recluse, Chris. And you see there's only one picture of her from later in her life. And it's like she's on a buggy, and, she's just this very mysterious woman. And I think sometimes with her, that mystique around her, this strange house she built, the seances with the psychic, the idea that she thought ghosts were chasing her and demons were out to kill her, it sort of builds this mystery around this woman that sticks around even today.
And she wasn't out of her mind, because she didn't have a plan. She didn't have the architect, but you're right. She was very smart. She consulted Tiffany and Company to create chandeliers, and she had these stained glass windows. And I thought it was interesting. I read about one window that she had specifically made that was going to cause a prismatic rainbow effect on the floor, when light flowed through it. So, when the sun was shined through that stained glass or through that, window, there would be this nice rainbow that would be on the floor, which is genius. It's absolutely brilliant. The problem is she put it on an interior wall, and therefore the sun was never going to hit it, and she wasn't going to get the rainbow effect that she had. She had hot water. She had push button gas lighting. She had all of these things,
which was rare at the time.
Absolutely, nobody had that stuff.
Yeah,
but once again, I think I really go back to what you're talking about, that she's lonely because you have contractors there every single day working on one of these 161 rooms or 47 fireplaces. And they report that she is bringing in every day mediums, psychics, and she's trying to get them to find the good spirits. And she wants to consult the good spirits who will tell her how to appease the bad spirits that she's building the house for. And so you just have this very sad picture of a woman who is just undergoing a traumatic mental breakdown, and the house is mysterious. The house is unique and interesting, but it also paints a picture of her life after the loss of something so important to her. She's just going through every day where she's just living like she's walking into a wall every day. There's no purpose to that. And, it's really sad. And then, she builds this house and things are going well. And then Ray, there's a natural event that happens in 1904, which creates a whole nother issue.
Yeah. It's actually, I did see some different dates, but I think I saw 1904, but I think it was actually 1906. There was a great earthquake there in San Jose, and it so damaged the upper three floors, the top three floors, fifth, sixth, seventh floors of the building, that they were just simply taken off. So now, and I've never visited the house, unfortunately, but now if you go to the house, it is only 4 stories. And I've actually talked to a gentleman recently who lived in San Jose at one point, and he said it just, he said he didn't think it was as big as people, make it out to be. But I think part of the reason for that is, this earthquake that hit that badly damaged the building. And of course, the construction continues until her death in September of 1922, when she dies in 1922. The house goes down to her niece, a lady called Marion. But interestingly enough, Chris, the house isn't in the will. It's not directly mentioned in the will, but it goes to her niece. And then when appraised, I guess maybe to sell it, it's not worth anything because it's so weird. Who wants to buy this house? Of course, nowadays, any house like that would probably sell, great. But back in, the early 20th century, people looked at this strange house and thought, why would anybody want to buy that? I mean, it's a very bizarre thing. So what we see, I think, when we look, Chris, at the Winchester mansion and at Sarah Winchester herself, is a story of tragedy. We think of this as, a ghost story or a mystery, and it is that, but it's also a story of tragedy. A woman who has a great upbringing, a privileged upbringing. She's very intelligent, very well situated in life. She marries a young man who's very much in the same situation. Things seem to be going well. They have a young daughter. The daughter dies. A number of years later, her husband dies. And then she gets into these psychics and this building project, and she becomes something of a recluse. And then, of course, you have the earthquake in 1906, and it's like one sad event after another sad event. And, you almost have to feel sorry for her. Whatever she was really afraid of, whatever demons that were actually haunting her, I think they played a really negative role in her life to where she couldn't have been a happy person.
There's a lot of people who would probably say, wow, I've never heard of this before. It really is a history you didn't know, but should. People, are unaware of the house, much less aware of Miss Winchester. But Ray, there, in the last few years, her life has kind of taken on, and the house, this like cultural phenomenon, I guess. It's one of those. I remember, what was it? This is I guess it's in San Francisco. Everybody likes to flock to San Francisco to see the house where Full House, I think, was given or done or something like that. Well, there's people that still flock to the Winchester Mystery House. It was sold, as you mentioned, wasn't in the will. And Ray, that house was sold for $135,000, to some guy, and he opened it up for tours. But then there became this obsession with it. And in 2000, in 18, there was a movie that was made. I think it's called Winchester. You might have seen it. I would stay away from it because it's one of those supernatural horror films. But Helen Mirren is in it, and there's also been these people who paranormals. They've gone and actually, done all of the things that are there as far as, is there any ghost in here, spirits or things of that nature. So there is still this cultural phenomenon about her. Ray, you are the ghost expert of our show. You're the person, and I need some help on this because I found this to be one last interesting thing. And so there were 13 bathrooms that she built. But she was told by the spirits that one of them was only to be functional, that the other 12 could not be functional. So can you help me? Why does a ghost need to have a functional bathroom?
I don't know what the functional bathroom was for the ghost. I think the functional bathroom was for Miss Winchester. But can you imagine, Chris? I mean, 13, of course, is a very significant number in the world of the occult and all of that. But can you imagine for a moment, you are living in that house. It's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And by the way, 3 o'clock in the morning is significant as well. I think that's called the witching hour.
The witching hour.
Witching hour. And it's weird because they say a lot of people will wake up around 3 in the morning. And I probably, this gets into the TMI area, but I wake up at around 3 every morning almost. It's the weirdest thing. It's like my brain has a clock. 3 o'clock, wake up. So somewhere between 3:30, I'm going to wake up every night and look at the clock. But can you imagine being Sarah Winchester or just being in the house at 3 o'clock in the morning and you have to go to the restroom and you're on the wrong side of this house. You've got fake doors, fake hallways, fake staircases, and you're trying to remember, okay, which bathroom was the working bathroom? And then, that would just be too much trouble. So, no, that would be a mess.
Yeah. And it would be.
And then trying to get back to the right bedroom because you got, how many bedrooms did she have in the house? And
161.
Yeah. And she's trying to figure out, all right, where was I sleeping tonight? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how she kept up with anything, to be honest with you.
I don't either, but here's the final thought that I have. So visitors to the home today still have this belief and these feelings that there are spirits that are living in the home. What's the odds?
Maybe there are.
Yeah, what's the odds that one of those spirits is Sarah Winchester herself? Because after all, she built the house for the restless dead. So maybe she's still residing in there and still trying to find that one bathroom that works.
Oh my gosh.
Just saying.
Well, I mean, she hopefully spirits can walk through walls. So the fake walls and stuff won't affect her. I hope.
Well,
sake.
I think this has been an excellent episode. I hope that our listeners will not flush this podcast away after the last 5 minutes of us talking about the restroom. But yeah, I know that joke went down the drain, but that's okay. I'll keep working on it. But I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to another wonderful edition of History You Didn't Know But Should. You can find us, if they'll still let us, on all different avenues of podcast, whether it's Google Play, it's iHeartRadio, Spotify, Sounder, Stitcher. You'll find us on social media. And so would you just please reach out and give a like or share a comment or just talk about how much these podcasts mean to you. I know they mean a lot to Ray and I. We always look forward each week selecting podcasts that we think are interesting, but are also entertaining and engaging. And maybe it's a few things that you didn't know, but we all should know. So thank you for listening. And until next time, I'm Chris. He's
Ray.
And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Have a great one.